A very good evening to one and all present here in this session. I, Dr. Varsha Goyal, Assistant Professor at Amity School of Business, feels extremely honored and privileged to welcome our guest speaker, Ms. Namita Tiwari, and to you all in this webinar on New Leadership Age to Build High Performance Team. Before we proceed to the webinar, I would like to introduce my guest speaker, Ms. Namita, who is having a rich industry experience of 18 years. So currently, ma'am is working as a senior manager, digital and content marketing at Tata Communications. Our area of expertise are digital and content marketing, messaging, campaigns, and communications. In the past, she has worked as corporate digital marketing associate manager at Accenture for 4 years. She has also worked as work group manager, digital marketing at NIIT Technologies for 3 years. She has rich B2B marketing experience in technology industry with HCL Technologies for 5 years and Infosys for 2 years. So now I would like to request ma'am to proceed with the session and to give us valuable insights on this theme. So yes, ma'am, I'm just unsharing my presentation and I request you to share your presentation. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Varsha, and thank you so much everyone else who's joined this call. I'm very happy to speak today, and I'm really excited about the topic also. So I'll start my presentation on the new age leadership for building high performance teams. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, your screen is visible, your PPT is visible.
Yes. So this is our topic, new age leadership to build high performance teams. I would request all the 30 plus member audience here to please participate, please speak, please call out, and engage with me while I hold this session. I would like this to be as interactive as possible, and I invite your opinion, views, how you feel this is. If you want some more information around any of the slides, please call out. I'll start with the common leadership styles that you must have spoken about and you must have heard about. I have gone through your syllabus that Varsha had sent to me, and I believe all these 10 types of traditional leadership styles has been covered. You know about it also. One interesting thing that I also noted in your syllabus was on the spiritual leadership. So I will touch upon the spiritual leadership part also in my presentation. However, the main focus will be on the new age leaders and how they create high performance teams. And with this, I will move on to the next slide. So what do you guys think? What is new age leadership? Can you name a few new age leaders?
Yes, anybody would like to volunteer and speak about who, can you name out, can you specify name the examples of new age leadership? Yes. Anybody would?
You can unmute yourself and speak. I welcome your voices.
Yes, Diksha. Yes, Ishika.
Okay, no worries. Let me make it easier for you. Can you call out who these people are? Come on, guys. Please speak up.
Yes.
The middle one is Sadhguru.
And others?
Ma'am, Steve Jobs.
Yeah, and
Bill Gates.
Yes, thank you so much. I can't see your name because I'm presenting on the screen right now, but thank you so much for your participation.
Thank you, Brinda, and thank you, Tarashna, for participation.
Thank you. Yeah. And let's move ahead. So as I move ahead in the deck, I will talk about these 3 individual leaders, what their leadership styles have been. We all know that they are successful, and they are very well-known figures. But we will see in detail, in a little bit of detail, as to what the leadership style has been, what have they done, and how they became such great leaders who have had such great impact and who have built high-performance teams. So let's start with this. Steve Jobs. So we all know about him. And we all know about what a great job he did with Apple and a couple of other companies also, not just Apple. I'm sure all of you would have read enough about him. There is a great biography on Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson, and I will show you a small video on Steve Jobs, wherein Walter Isaacson is talking about Steve Jobs. It's a 2 minutes and 2.5 minute video, and I think it will help you. So let's watch it.
The key to Steve Jobs' genius, I think, is the marriage of creativity with science. He loves to say that when he was a kid, he loved the liberal arts, but then he became an electronics geek. If you look at people in the world today, some are great at technology, like Bill Gates. Some are great at the arts, whether it's, Bono or the Beatles. But Steve Jobs could appreciate both camps, and that is what makes a great 21st century company, but frankly, a 21st century economy, is being creative, but also connecting it to the science. Steve Jobs can be really brutal to the people he works with. He can really push them, and some people break under the pressure. But if you're really able to stand up to him, he loves it. They give an award to the person who stands up best to Steve Jobs. That started back in the old Macintosh days in the early '80s. So he can be very, very demanding, but he loves it when people stand up to him. I think Steve Jobs admires people who have great creativity and have a spiritual aura to them. Gandhi, the Maharaji, who was his spiritual leader when he took up Zen Buddhism, but also Einstein, and then people who were great technologists and artists, such as Edison and Ford. If you look at the Think Different ads, he picked out every one of those. That Picasso picture, that John Lennon picture, Bobby Kennedy. He wanted to show who his heroes were, and that's what distinguished those Think Different ads. In the late 70s and early 80s, a lot of strands came together in California. You had the hippie movements, you had the free speech movements, but you also had self-awareness and spirituality and Est and Esalen and Zen Buddhism. You also had the computer culture, the wireheads, the electronic geeks, the phone freakers and stuff like that. They tended not to get along too well until the early 80s, when people like Steve Jobs came from both camps, loved reading the Whole Earth catalog, but also loved reading popular. I think that's where Apple comes from, is that mix of the counterculture and technology.
Yeah, so I hope you liked the video. It was a small one, but I would again want the audiences to interact with me and tell me a couple of traits that you just heard about Steve Jobs. Before I flash it on the slide, please call out, guys. What do you think? I think Walter mentioned that Steve Jobs was a bit abrasive, but he had very high expectations. He had a great passion for technology and technology coming together with creativity. And can you name a few more things, guys?
Yes, anybody would like to volunteer? You all have studied the subject ULMO, Understanding Leadership and Motivation, and you all are the students of that subject, and you have attended a lot of leadership series also. So can you please participate and come up, Steve Jobs. Can you please participate and come up with some of the traits of Steve Jobs? Everybody knows.
Ma'am, he was very ambitious.
Yes, very good.
Very good. Ambitious. Very good, Kunal. Appreciative. Yes. Anybody would like to volunteer?
He also was inspired spiritually, right? It was also mentioned in the video that he heard that he was spiritually inspired. He came to India also so many years ago. Okay, now let me flash it, but I would really appreciate if people speak up. It'll be more fun. I will have more fun if you speak up. So here are the main traits. Creativity plus technology, being persistent under pressure, inspired by spirituality, having a clear vision, being demanding, yes, being abrasive, but he liked when people stood up to him. And he truly believed that passion can change the world. So these were the key traits of Steve Jobs. Now we will move on to Bill Gates. And I had two videos in mind, but one was kind of a bit longer and older. So I'm going to play a shorter video. And please watch the video carefully because I'm really going to expect you to speak up after the video on the traits of Bill Gates. Okay?
Did you care about money, or you just cared about technology and it just happened?
Mostly I love software. I do remember at the private school I went to, there were other kids whose families were better off, like they had a Porsche or something, but it wasn't that big of a deal. My thing was that I just loved doing software. I loved hiring people, and I was stunned when it ended up being so valuable.
Bill Gates is the most successful entrepreneur of the 20th century. He's the co-founder of Microsoft Corporation, the leading company in software, services, and solutions that help people and businesses. It was founded in 1975. Bill Gates grew up in Seattle, Washington, and in 25 years, he built a two-man operation into a multi-billion-dollar company and made himself a millionaire at 21, becoming the richest man in the world somewhere along the way. He entered Harvard in 1973 to pursue a computer science career by his father's influence. He dropped out less than 2 years later to work on Microsoft. Bill Gates once said, "I will always choose a lazy person to do a difficult job because a lazy person will find an easy way to do it." This shows that he's a clever leader because he's thinking outside the box, finding different solutions to things that might be more efficient or better in some way. Rather than hiring the person with the most qualifications or the best education or work experience, he would hire the person best fit for that job specifically. He's also always growing and learning new things from his mentors to become a better leader himself. For example, a Forbes article showed his efforts to improve his communication and public speaking skills in 2014. He found something that was a weakness to him and worked hard at improving it. This is a great act of leadership because it will inspire and encourage others to do the same. He is also a man with vision. His abilities to envision and strategize goals and plans make it easy for others to follow him and know exactly what he wants to do. Nelson Mandela's 8th lesson of leadership, "Quitting is leading too," applies to Bill Gates. It means to know when and how to abandon a failed idea, even when you worked really hard on it. It applies to Gates because after him and his co-worker Paul Allen made $20,000 off their first company, Trafodata, they completely let it go because they would have been wasting their time working on something that wasn't worth it. They moved to Albuquerque, where they officially established and founded Microsoft. Mandela's 4th lesson of leadership, "Know your enemy and learn his favorite sport," also applies to him, because Gates and Allen were writing software for companies they would soon be competing with, like Apple and Tandy Corp. They had an idea of what the competition was going to be like, and specifically knew what kind of software they'd be selling. I think my decision-making skills make me a good leader because I can make good, sensible choices on the spot. For example, one time I had to prioritize a lot of work that I had to do on one day from most important to least important, and got it all done on time. This shows my level of responsibility and quick thinking as a leader.
Yes, everyone. So this was a very short video on Bill Gates' leadership. So what do you think are his leadership?
The story of how you got from India to Microsoft in the early 90s is not your typical immigrant.
Ma'am, he was very much passionate and focused towards his goal, and moreover, he was having more of a creative side.
That's good. Anyone else?
Yes, Pravneet.
And he believed thinking out of the box, and he was the one who was not after money, as he told in the very first statement that he used to follow his passion. That is what he likes to do. And if you master that art, then everything else, success, money, everything will follow. So this was his vision that I could understand from this video.
Very good, very good. I'm really impressed. Thank you so much. Anyone else?
Anyone else would like to volunteer and answer? Yes, may I know? So there are 56 students in this team. Only 3 of them, they have volunteered for the answer. May I know anybody would like to try? Yes.
It's all right if you I just want you to participate. You don't have to be 100% right in what you say. Please feel free to speak up. Okay, no worries. I'm going to share the traits that we got from the videos. So some of them were spoken about and some of them I had researched and picked up. For example, it was very clearly spoken that he was very passionate and he had a passion for creativity and technology. Some of the other things that, also the video spoke about was that he was not afraid of learning. So even, as late as 2006, he picked up his public speaking skills. And he was willing to work on them, and he was willing to talk about it to his team, which was great. Something else, noticeably, there was another point on, quitting is leading to, wherein, you as a leader, you need to know where you have to realize your mistakes and cut your losses and move on. That's an important leadership trait as well. And another leadership trait, especially for Bill Gates, that I am personally very fond of is that he has, he decided to give back to the world with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He decided to help people, help humanity, and they are doing some great work in helping people across the world where they need in terms of health facilities, in terms of education. They are doing some great work. So that's another leadership quality in him that I have really admired. And with this, we'll move on to Sadhguru. Okay, so I'd like to keep this a little open. Instead of playing a video, which seems to be a little long, which I will do, I would like to ask you, would you guys want to see the video, or would you guys want to just talk about the leadership views of Sadhguru? You must have seen his videos umpteen times on YouTube and wherever else. Anyone wants to speak about it, or do you prefer that I play the video and then we talk about it?
Yes.
Raise your hand, guys. Varsha, you can see the hand count. Do they want to watch the video, or do they want to talk about it?
This is in favor of watching the video first and then speaking about Sadhguru?
Yes.
Yes. Should I believe this is in the favor of watching the video? Prabhani, Truchi, Bhavya?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Basically, we have taken this topic, leadership and building high performance team, because we have some of the LMO students as well as this one topic, high performance building team. So that who is going to build the high performance team? So the leader, the manager. So one should have that kind of quality and that kind of style to build and to lead the high performance team, right? So that is why we have picked up this topic, new leadership age, with the to build high performance team, and that is why we are discussing first we are focused. We are focusing on the leadership, the traits and the styles, and then we are going to focus on high performance team building. Because once you will be in the corporates, you need to understand what is the importance as a leader or as a manager. You need to build the high performance team. Nowadays, it's a culture of high performance team building. So that is why we have taken this topic and we are linking with this, right? We are going with the flow, right? So you all are, I know you all are the students of leadership, and the you have studied this topic. So that is why we are taking this. So please do participate in that. Yes, Namita, yes, you can continue.
Should I play the video? Was the count?
Yes, you can. They have raised their hand.
No worries. Okay, so I'll play the video. This is a bit long, around 8 minutes, but it would be worth watching.
I think anybody should try to become a leader. It's quite obscene that I want to become a leader, that means all of you should be what? I don't know. I know what you would like to call yourself. It's not about you wanting to become a leader or someone wanting to become a leader. Because of a certain thing that you have done within yourself, or a certain level of observation, or a certain intelligence, or a certain experience, you are able to see something that most people are not able to see. The moment you're able to see something, then people will naturally look up to you as a leader because you're seeing something that they cannot see. And if you become a leader, there are many ways to become a leader. You can get elected, you can get selected, you can work it, you can pull other people down and become a leader, or simply people will rise you as a leader because they see that either you're able to see something or you're able to do something which they themselves cannot do. I feel this is the way leadership should happen, if you want to call it that someone is able to see something and do something that others cannot do, so everybody wishes he must take charge of the situation because naturally he will be able to do something that the others will not be able to do. So what is the quality of leadership? Leadership means once you sit on a perch, you better see clearer than others, otherwise you'll make a ridiculous fool of yourself. There's a whole, in the nation certain things have been happening.
Right.
Somebody sits on a perch and he doesn't see any better than you, he looks like a fool immediately. So, it is not about you wanting to sit on the perch, you wanting to see something must get you to the perch. Not because you want to be above everybody else, you get to the perch. So what is the quality of a leader? I don't think there's any particular quality. One thing is, a leader means his sense of life is beyond himself. It's not about… his sense of identity is beyond himself. Somebody becomes a leader because he's willing to think and feel and act for more people than himself. If you act for yourself, you're called self-centered. If you just act for the sake of 2 or 3 people you gather in the form of family, you are named as Dhritarashtra. There are modern names for that. If you identify yourself with the entire nation or the world, you'll be looked at in a different way. Essentially, your leadership will come from the right context depending upon what you're identified with. Because everybody needs an identity. What sort of identity have you taken will determine the context and the quality of your leadership.
In that context, isn't leadership something that, each of us can individually manifest? If I were to describe one dimension of leadership as saying it is about taking ownership to create a better outcome. In that context, we can convert leadership from a noun to a verb.
I don't know that much grammar, okay.
But you can try.
See, whatever we do, every human activity, the purpose of an activity is to produce something. Production may be a safety pin, a computer, love, joy, health, well-being, it doesn't matter what. We want to produce something. When we act, we want it to be effective. How small an act or how big an act is not the important. We want something to happen effectively, which means it's a question of efficiency, it's a question of with how little, how much more you could do. That's what makes you… because all of us have the same amount of time in a day. People always tell me, Sadhguru, you had such a long day. I said, unfortunately, there's no long day, but they give me only 24 hours. I would like to bargain for more, but it's not happening. You can make it more by increasing your efficiency, the way you function, including people as a part of yourself, where other people will function as a part of you so that you don't have to bother about so many things around you. In this sense, you can enhance what you do. But time-wise, all of us have the same time, we can't help it. So, how much can you produce, in how little time, in how little material, is the question. In the limited span of time which we have as life, what is it that we can do? Is it just about efficiency? Is it about simply mindless efficiency, do better, do better? No. At different times in history, people seem to want different things on the surface. But essentially, no matter which time of history, who they are, which part of the world they are, everybody wants the same thing, well-being. But their idea of well-being, everybody has their idea, how to get there. But everybody wants well-being, no question about that. It doesn't matter which part of the world you go, whether you came here 1,000 years ago or today, 100 years later, you will see people will be still seeking well-being. In pursuit of well-being, maybe 100 years ago, somebody would be going in search of water, today you're going in search of the Wi-Fi cloud. But still well-being. People's idea of well-being, whatever that is, people are only well only when something beautiful happens within themselves. They think they're going to cause it to themselves by some means. But people have been happy before the Wi-Fi came, people have been happy before the automobile came, people have been happy before all the luxuries we are enjoying today appeared. So what I'm saying is, well-being, if you're in pursuit of well-being, essentially, it is about what happens within the human being. What happens within the human being, in the name of so many things, I don't want to name all the things, in the name of so many things, what we call as family, society, and another world which we call as corporate world, all these things we created, these are all different names or different mechanisms that we believe will bring well-being to us. Somebody built a family, somebody built a corporation, both in pursuit of well-being, isn't it? I must tell you this. The first time I was at Davos so many years ago, they were almost resentful. Why… what is a mystic doing an economic summit? A particular CEO who was in charge of a top computer manufacturing company, 3 months later they got sold out to the Chinese.
We can guess who they were.
So he was very resentful. What are you doing here? Then I told him, see, what's your business? He said, I do computers. So see, whether you manufacture a computer or a safety pin or in between anything, fundamentally, this is about human well-being. The basic business is human well-being. You may do it through your computer, somebody will produce safety pin, somebody will produce a cloth, somebody will produce something else. It doesn't matter what you're doing, the fundamental business is human well-being, and that's my business too. And that's why I'm here.
Yes. So, in the beginning, he did speak about leadership and what makes a good leader. And do you guys remember any of the points that he said?
Yes, Prabhaneet.
Ma'am, basically he talked more about the personality of a leader. Like if a leader has to say that I am the leader, that's more of a dictatorship. So he focuses on that. You should have that aura or the involvement in your personality that okay, people follow you willingly. Like you don't have to ask them to follow me like I'm a leader. So that was the main sense I could just make out of the video.
Yes, very good, very good. And he mentioned other things like, yes, the most important thing that he said was what you were referring to, a sense of a leader has a sense of life which is beyond himself. He's able to see things that others are not able to see. He's able to do things for people which they are not able to do for themselves. And a leader is willing to act and achieve for not just himself, but for more people. And he also delved on the people wellness. If you see in the latter half of the video, he spoke a lot about the well-being part. And that's how that's my takeaway from spiritual leadership, that it elevates people wellness, vision, trust, and hence positively inspires and motivates them to do their best performance. That's how I'm linking spiritual leadership to high performance. And with this, I'm going to now move on. Okay, this slide is a summary slide of all the traits that we just heard about. We will not be spending too much time on this. I would like to now move on to the high performance part. So we are now going to move on to the building high performance team. This is the second half of my presentation. While we have spoken about leadership and leadership styles, we are now going to take you to the area where we're going to talk about how leadership can help one build high performance teams. And there's a very interesting study that Google did. And it's a very long study that they did. It was a 2-year project that they did, and they wanted to find out what makes teams successful in high performance. And they, did a research with about 180 teams for 2 years. They hired a very smart chap called Charles Duhigg, who's going to talk in this video. They tried to find out the factors, ecosystem, what makes people, is it the type of people that makes teams successful? Should we have introverts? Should we have extroverts? Should we have people sitting together physically, or it's fine to have them spread across the world? Does it matter if they are talking more to each other, or is it all right if they are keeping a distance from each other? What makes a team successful? And this project was called Google's Project Aristotle. You will, if you Google and if you go to YouTube, you'll find many videos on this, but I have chosen the best possible video for it. And they had some great findings, great insights. It's really a great project that they did. And people today are also following the results of this project. So I'm going to start this video where Charles Duhigg, who was hired by Google for this research, is going to talk about 1 or 2 key findings. Okay, there are many other findings which I will show you in the rest of the slides, but the main finding is what this guy is going to talk about. Okay, I'm just starting the video, and I'm going to ask questions after the video, so please watch it carefully.
For just $67, you can make as many videos as you want, and you never need to pick up a camera or use any.
One of the biggest questions is how to build the perfect team. And in fact, about 4 years ago, Google invited me to come spend some time with them because they were in the middle of a big project called Project Aristotle, a huge data study to try and figure out how to build the perfect team at Google. Initially, their hypothesis was that the best teams are teams where you put people together who like each other, right? Maybe you need a good mix of extroverts and introverts. Maybe you need people who are friends away from the conference room. And so they looked at the data and they did experiments, and they found that who was on a team actually didn't matter at all. They couldn't find any correlations between team membership and team success. So then they started looking at how a team interacts. And this is where suddenly everything became clear. Because what they found is that the people who are on a team matter much, much less than how those people interact. That you could have enemies on a team together, or you could have strangers or friends or people who don't get along, or all introverts or all extroverts. And as long as they treat each other a certain way, as long as there's a certain culture, then that team will gel. So as they started looking at these behaviors, what they found was that there were 2 in particular that mattered more than anything else. The first was called equality in conversational turn-taking. During a meeting or a set of meetings, if everyone speaks at roughly the same amount, then that team is much more likely to succeed. But just speaking isn't actually enough. The second characteristic that teams need in order to do well is called ostentatious listening. That basically, in addition to encouraging you to talk more, I, as a team leader or team member, have to show you that I'm listening by doing things like repeating what you just told me or closing my computer so I can make eye contact with you. If you have these 2 characteristics, conversational turn-taking and ostentatious listening, it creates what psychologists refer to as psychological safety. And psychological safety is shown as the single greatest correlate with a group's success. When a group feels like they are psychologically safe with each other, you unlock their best ideas, their ability to work together, their innovative capacities. Google's fundamental belief, as is true for many other companies, is that it's only when a team comes together that you actually get the best ideas out of each person and the best work at getting things done.
Thank you for coming on my website.
Yes, so this was the video, and anyone wants to talk about any of the key points that he mentioned? He mentioned 3 main points. I'd like to hear from the team some of the points that they would want to talk about.
Anybody would like to volunteer? You have seen the video. Yes, Bhavya, and then Pravneet. Very good you are participating and you are paying attention. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. One of the point mentioned was regarding psychological safety, which was the last point mentioned. And since I've studied about it earlier, so I would just want to elaborate on that first. So talking about psychological safety, at Google also they have certain initiatives taken where they allow the team to do what they really wish to do. That is innovation time off that I had studied about earlier. So psychological safety allows them to actually put forward their true selves, and that is how they're able to put forward their vulnerabilities, their weaknesses, and overcome those to become a high performing team overall. This is what I have an understanding of, and I have studied about Google implementing these things in their work culture as well to become high performing teams.
Thank you so much, Bhavya. Was that your name?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bhavya. I'm so happy that you are aware of this and you've studied about it, and you also know that Google has a culture where they give official time off to people to innovate and come up with new things, and they are totally open to knowing their employees' vulnerabilities, what their interests are, what they want to do beyond the work. So I'm very happy that you're aware of this. Very well pointed out. Anybody else wants to talk about what they saw in the video?
Yes. Ma'am, I would like to say that when it comes to teams, it is very much important for the team after it's been made to gel up with each other, because I can just relate it to when we organize events in clubs as well. Unless you have that good bonding with your team, even the best person could not be that efficient, because at the end of the moment, you have to work with everyone, taking everyone's perspective in together. So that is one of the things that I saw in the video, and I could relate to it, that in a team it is equally important to gel up and understand others' perspective and present yours as well in a respective manner, so that everyone could contribute their best part and leading to the overall best output. That is.
Yes, very, very good. Actually, he spoke about the fact that, people could be working with their enemies or their friends, but as long as while working, they are collaborating together and they're treating each other with respect, there's equal contribution, equal invitation of ideas from everyone, the teams are likely to succeed. Okay, now, so I'll move on to the next slide where we will see of course, psychological safety was the main point here, but he also spoke about, conversational turn taking and ostentatious listening and some other points which we'll see in the other slide. Okay, so let me just the first few points that went well, which he spoke about, some of them and some of them more you'll see in the slide, are the ones that the Google Aristotle project called out as things that help teams become successful. But there are also some points that the project Aristotle called out that these things don't really matter. So you will see two set of points here. The psychological safety, trust and dependability, structure and clarity, and meaning and purpose to work, impact and making a difference to the world. So these were the points that the study called out will help a team perform better. And the study also found out that there were some points which did not help the team as a team, towards high performance. Those points were which did not help, and which we feel that, usually when we feel that, okay, if we hire a senior person or if we have a huge team, we will be successful. But if you see on the slide, I've mentioned that co-location of teammates, seniority, or extroversion of team members, individual performance of team members. Let's say you hire a star performer, but if he's not gelling well with the team, or if he's not treating others in the team with complete respect, the team as a whole is not likely to succeed. So there were this study is a very detailed study. I would encourage all of you to go and read about it. But what I could gather for this presentation, some points I have picked up, and that's what I'm calling out here to all of you. Psychological safety, trust and dependability, having a purpose to work, making you feel that you're making an impact to the world. And that is one of the reasons why Google encourages the innovation agenda in their team, in their company. So there's officially teams are allowed to take their time off and think of something new and come up, and Google actually funds those projects also. So all these learnings have come from this project Aristotle, along with some eye-openers that, what doesn't really help, what hiring an individual star performer may not help, in having the great team performance. Having a large team size will not help. Extroversion of team members, if everybody you feel you've hired the best speakers of the world and that will help you gain results, it may not help you gain results. So there are many insights from this study, and please, whenever you have some time, go through and read about it. And with this, there is a gentleman called Simon Sinek. Have you guys heard about him? Please raise your hands, those who have heard about him. And Varsha, please tell me the count. I'd like to know.
Yes, only one student know about him. Yes.
Oh, really? Okay, so let me tell you about Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek is, he is an author. He's a management author, and he writes predominantly on leadership. And most of his 2 books are very, very famous. First one is called Start With Why, and the second one is called Leaders Eat Last. Okay, both the books are highly recommended, and I would like to talk about what he talks about. I cannot show you the videos because they're all 20 minutes long videos, so I don't think we can show them in the session, but I've given the links, and possibly when Varsha shares the deck with you, you can see them and know more about him. So in Simon Sinek's philosophy, leaders can inspire action and inspire high performance when they start their agenda of work and why they are doing it with the question of why. It again connects them with the same point that we spoke about before in terms of adding meaning or purpose to work and what impact it is going to make a difference to the world. That point. So his book and his philosophy is about inspiring teams while telling them the why of the project. Why are we doing it? How it is going to help? How it is going to change the world? What is going to be the result of it? That is his philosophy, and it's a very, very proven leadership philosophy. So please read about it. The second part that he has also written and spoken about is also why good leaders make you feel safe. And this safe part again connects back to the psychological safety that Google has spoken about. Google Project Aristotle has spoken about. Okay, so I'll just briefly describe what Simon Sinek suggests, that leaders who make their employees feel secure and keep them in the circle of trust. So circle of trust is another concept by Simon Sinek that you should read about. And by creating a circle of trust and making them feel secure, they can seek the best performance from the employees, even in an uneven economy or even in a pandemic kind of a situation. We're all working and we're all still giving our best to our leaders. What is making us do that? Because we are feeling very secure. We are allowed to work from home. We're allowed to, we trust that, we will be given the safety and security that we need, the flexibility that we need. So there are various, tenets to it. But I think these 2 videos and this philosophy of Simon Sinek would help if you go through it. It connects very well leadership with high performance. And that's the reason why I added them in my presentation. I would also now like to talk about 5 leadership skills that help accelerate performance of your team. And I think most of you would know, it's very clearly written: teamwork and collaboration, managing change, communication, learning agility, and judgment. Would anyone want to talk about teamwork and collaboration? Any of the points anybody wants to talk about? These are very straightforward points. So I would encourage you to, if you have any doubts on how what point connects to leadership performance, but more or less these points are pretty straightforward. So is there anything you want to talk about? Any examples that you want to give us around this?
Yes, anybody would like to?
For example, I'll tell you how Modi ji reacted to the pandemic situation in India. That there is teamwork, there is change. Suddenly you cannot go out, you cannot have people on the streets. We don't know how to work, how to manage the work life. There's so much of population. How can we manage it? How can we manage keeping Indians secure? And at the same time, we lead them well and we make sure that the economy also runs in some way or the other. We were agile. he had great judgment of people and strategy. You know, India has done well in terms of vaccination initiatives. We have not just done well for ourselves, we've even sent our vaccines to other countries, and we are being recognized for that all over the world. So I think in terms of example that I think of, I think Modi ji, the way he handled the COVID-19 situation is a good example of leadership to performance. Anyone else wants to talk about any other example that comes to your mind?
Anybody would like to? Okay, you may continue.
Okay, so I have in my presentation next, I have these links wherein I have mentioned the sources of all the information that I spoke about. However, things have come from my experience, but just to put a source set of links that can help the students to know and know more about the slides, I've added this. Yeah. I also have some additional slides before I thank you guys. You know, these are some additional slides wherein I have written what can be the approach, how can you choose your leadership style. You know, you need to introspect and ask yourself questions. You know, do you believe in structure or freedom of choice? Are you someone who takes his own decision, or are you someone who collectively takes decision, or are you someone who takes everyone's opinion but decide on your own? Do you like focusing on short-term or long-term goals? What motivates you? You know, does empowerment motivates you, or does, as in the Bill Gates video, he spoke about that technology is what he's passionate about, and in Steve Jobs, it was that, you know, technology and creativity both fuels his mind. So similarly, what motivates you, and what does a healthy team dynamic look like to you? So what kind of a leadership style you choose can depend on these factors. And then I also have some ideas on how to develop your leadership styles. You know, you need to try and experiment with some approaches. It depends on what kind of work you need to get done from people. Is it a thinking work? Is it an execution heavy work? Is it something which is in which you cannot have any mistakes? Or is it something that is possibly volume driven or value driven? So what kind of leadership style you would approach for that particular kind of work? Seeking a mentor is always a great way of developing your leadership style. I have developed my leadership style by seeking out mentors from my work area, from my college days, from wherever I can. So I'm always seeking a mentor who knows more than me. And asking for feedback, sometimes it's a little hard to do it, but it's always good to ask for feedback because it helps you. And I would encourage future leaders like you to ask for feedback, not just from the people who are higher above you, but also people who you are leading. I do that as a practice. So I ask for feedback from the team that reports to me. And of course, my bosses give me a feedback on everything that I do. So, but it's good to seek feedback. It really helps. And as and when you grow further in your career, you will feel that you know, feedback has to be taken in the right manner, and there is more to be grateful for while taking the feedback than anything else, because the same mistake, if you make it later on again in your life, it's better to make it early than later in life. So it's important to ask for feedback and try and be as authentic as you can. I do get inspired, and I watch leadership styles of you know, Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, or there are many others who have not put up, like Barack Obama, like Modi ji. You know, we try to know about people's like leadership style, and we do take inspiration from them. But try and be authentic as you can. And what else do we have? I think that's about it. There is one more video, a small one. Shall I play it? It's not a very long one. We have 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes. Varsha?
Yes, we can play it.
This is a small video, and it will just talk about how to be a good leader and how to have a, you know, how to improve your leadership and performance. It connects leadership and performance together, so I thought I'd have this here.
what fascinates me about remote robotic is to be able to do operation remotely without being in the place. The moment that we have 5G and we have extreme low latency, then you see the breakthrough, you see the possibility, and you want to jump to that. But also see the future of that, you can see actually robots collaborating between each other, and that is really, really opening a realm of new possibility for all of us.
Delegation is a key part of being a leader. Once you finesse your vision, learn to trust your team. Communication is essential. Be authentic and create a connection with your team. Be succinct and speak directly when giving instructions. A good leader shows enthusiasm. Morale is linked to positivity. Instill positive energy. Try and keep an upbeat attitude. It's okay to fake it sometimes. Accountability is mandatory. Act ethically and responsibly. Keep your word and try not to make promises you can't keep. Practice these tips every day and you'll be a great leader in no time.
I think I'm done. I hope everyone enjoyed the session. I hope it was interactive enough. I hope the fact that I pulled out some videos did not make you feel bored by the PPT. So that's about it. I would love to have any questions that the audience may have.
Any questions? Yes, may I know? Any questions from your side? Anybody would like to have questions from her, ma'am? Anybody would like to ask questions? Yes. No questions? Yes.
Is there any, can you do a hand raise for those who found the session good and interactive and worth your time?
I have a question. I'm keen to know because I have seen many of the companies, they are focusing on the skill development program, ma'am. So in that case, okay, we appreciate that skill development program on communications and many of the skills development program can be done. But when they say leadership skill development program, right? So is it really helpful to the employees that they, with those leadership programs, they realize their leadership skills, or they are able to lead in the company, or when they are dealing with the team members? Are they really effective? And what can you, because you have a lot of corporate experience, so can you, what kind of activities they go with that they are helping the employees to lead, or making them realize that they have these leadership skills? Because it's a very practical topic, and until you take the responsibility and you lead, no, you initiate or you try, then only I feel so that at the time you can realize that you have that capability or not. When you are dealing with the team members or your colleagues, and you are initiating and you are delegating and you are doing all this, then only you feel like. If you're not doing that, so how you're going to realize that you have that leadership capability? So my question is that, do these leadership, to first question, or the leadership program which the company conducts, especially the leadership programs, focusing on the leadership program, not the soft skills one, other ones, are they really helping the employees to realize their leadership skills, and as well as the employee, they actually feel like that they are the leaders, right? Question is that.
Very good question, Varsha. So you have to answer your first question, whether these leadership training, does it help? So the answer is yes, it does help. Because in the leadership journey or in the career journey, people are at a different stage at different time. Okay, so they need those programs. For example, if a person has started out for the first 5 years of the career, usually after first 5 years of the career, people, when they start leading a team of 2 people, 3 people kind of a role, you will feel that most of them would have a very autocratic style of leadership. So these leadership training programs help an individual to broaden up their mind. While you may have studied about collaborative and transformational style of leadership in your courses, it is very difficult to actually practically apply that style. So these kind of training courses tells you how you can apply it, how it can be collaborative, and how you can, have everybody's opinion on the table and then choose the wiser one. How you can give everyone in the team the comfort and the respect that you need to give to have a collaborative and a high performance team. So at many stages in the career, people need to go through leadership training, and yes, it does help. Now, the second question is how do they give those leadership training? What do they do? Because leadership is a very, very practical activity. Yes, very, very, you're right. And how they do it is, there are 2-3 methods. One method is called a role play method. So they will give you a situation and they will ask you to perform or say how would you handle, as a leader, how would you handle this crisis? And see, nothing can match a practical experience, nothing can match a real life experience, but knowing about what options one can have, thinking through it, things like role play, things like case study, things like a crisis situation, how you're going to handle as a leader. Some kind of mock situations are given. You are told to make a plan for your team, achievement plan, high performance plan for the team, and you are rated on how well do you execute it. So the leadership training and leadership, yes, it is challenging because the learning you will have on the real ground is the best learning that you can get. But it's always good to have those leadership training sessions that the corporates provide. And this is the precise reason why the corporates provide, because they want their leaders to be prepared before they actually get into those real life situations. Does it answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much. Kunal and Tarashna, you want to ask some question as you have raised your hand? Is Kunal and Tarashna? Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Namita ma'am. You have given your time and valuable inputs on the leadership styles as well as the high performance team building. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, students, for attending the session and for participating in the session. Thank you so much for your overwhelming response. Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am. I'm ending up the recording now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.